Okay, welcome back to another Mid-Ulster Amateur Radio Club Tuesday night lecture. We're kicking off again this evening with Lauren and her dad, who's going to be talking to us about this fantastic radio by Boat, Boat, Boot, and Bike, which is going to be great title, great working title. Um, just something we announcement. We are actually taking a break for Easter, so we're not going to be on the second Tuesday in April, and we're not going to be on the fourth Tuesday in March here. So our date back is actually going to be Tuesday, the 20th of April. We're taking a break, a 4-week break for Easter, and we're just going to take a bit of a rest. So there's no pressure for tonight to be great, by the way, but you're the last one for for 4 weeks. um, if you do want to catch up on our previous lectures, though, you can visit our YouTube channel, youtube.com/MUARC media. And that is all our lectures that have happened since the very start of the very first lockdown back, I think it was April time when we started doing these. So they're all there. You can plenty of videos there to keep you going during the break, and some great topics, some great interviews, and really great content. So do check out our YouTube channel. Okay, so you're not here to listen to me rabble this evening. I'm going to ask Kevin and Lauren just to introduce themselves and tell us a wee bit about them for those people who don't know who they are. For me, I knew of them before I knew them, because everyone was talking about the father and daughter doing these mad things for radio. Even over here in Northern Ireland, you were famous before we actually got introduced and everything by email just the other week. So maybe you can tell us a bit about yourselves, and then it's completely over to you.
Yeah, sure. Well, very good evening, everyone. Nice to see you all on there. And as you know, I'm Kevin. Call sign is G0PEK. My original call sign was G7EOZ, but that's been taken over by Debbie, my wife. So she's not very active on the radio, but she uses the radio more from a practical point of view. And of course, we've got Lauren.
Hello.
A girl of many words. She's been licensed since 2010, I think. No, 2011, was it?
Yeah.
No. Since she was 9, anyway. There we go. She's
7 years.
She's in GCSEs, would you believe? Yeah. So she's been licensed for a little while there. So we started off sort of very keen with radio back in sort of the late 80s, early sort of 90s and stuff like that, and did a lot of stuff. And then we moved up to our current location here in Medway in Kent, and then didn't do anything. Just life carried on, and radios took a real back seat. And they slowly started to make their way back into the shack, and then Lauren came along, and then we started carrying on doing all our other outdoory things, and then the radio sort of started to take over a little bit, didn't it? Really, when you wanted to do some. So that was basically the intro of what we did. We always did stuff up in the mountains. Always took a radio, but there was never much going on at that particular time. But so Lauren's been licensed for a little while now. Not as active as she was with her M6 call, but that's because there's other commitments. You've got schoolwork, and that's really taking precedence at the moment. So a lot of effort going into all her schooling. So radio, quite rightly, takes a bit of a back seat. But hopefully we'll still do some stuff when we're out and about. So that's a brief intro on us. Are you ready for me to run the PowerPoint thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Whenever you are.
Okay, right. We'll start on that. Is it that one?
Yeah.
This is my technical wizard here. And
Yeah.
that one?
Yeah.
And share. It's all right.
Good.
Hey, right, there we go. Right, so we're not a member of any particular radio club anymore, and I won't go into the reasons why that is, but we were, and then we weren't. And then we set up this thing called Kent Active Radio Amateurs, which was basically purely selfishly, it was a platform for us to share our radio adventures when we're out and about through, Facebook and stuff like that. That's how it started. That's not what it's become, and it does help to sort of interact with clubs throughout throughout Kent and the southeast. So it's been quite a good little platform, and we've got over 300 people that come into it now, and we share posts all over the place from there. So that's one of the things that we currently do. And hang on, is that working? Why isn't that working, Lauren?
I don't know.
Hang on.
There you
Oh,
go.
there we go. Right. So we decided to do this one on a little bit of a theme of Lord of the Rings, just because it's all to do with journeys and stuff like that, and radio is very precious to us. And that was one of the little quotes that Tolkien used in one of his books, and that's always the thing that we've always thought about whenever we go anywhere. We're never really sure where we're going to end up and whether we're going to do the things that we actually originally thought, or whether it's all going to happen according to plan, and it rarely does. So there we are. But we split our activity things into three main groups, as you'll see, which is the we're having trouble moving things on at the minute. Hang on. Why isn't it working?
Press the arrow instead.
Right, we do it on the arrows. There we go. So boats, boots, and bikes. And the reason for that is because radio, especially when we've been taking Lauren out doing stuff, it's not always been the primary activity that we've done. It sort of become that, but that wasn't the intention at the beginning. It was very much an activity that we would do along the lines of, when we're doing other things like the canoeing, like the walking and the cycling and the camping and stuff like that. So that was how it all started there. So Lauren first sort of started hitting the hills when she was 4 years old. Placefell up in the Lake District was the first one. Helvellyn the following year, and she did her first long canoe trip at 5 years old. In fact, we did it twice that year. So very much when we're doing this, although we're sort of splitting the activities up into the three groups, they weren't done individually. They were all interlaced. So we would do canoeing and we would do a bit of walking on another day and stuff like that. So a lot of these adventures, were mingled. So that was one of the main things that we did. First canoe trip we did was way back in Easter 2011. Lauren was 5 years old and did it at Easter. And she liked it so much, we did it twice that year. The only radio that we actually did with us on that trip was APRS. I literally stuck a Slim Jim, made it on a piece of plastic tubing and attached it to the back of the canoe, and I let it chirp away our position. And that was all we did. Wasn't sure whether the adventures were going to work. We had to sort of carry extra things like lots of reading books and colouring books and things to keep a youngster amused. But it worked brilliantly. And we actually planned that trip almost with military precision. So we could be picked up at any given time on any given day. We had it all worked out like that, but we didn't have to do that. And I think it was about 8 or 9 days later, at 122 miles later, we were down at a finishing point for that trip in Chertsey. So that was basically it. So APRS was our first little venture into the realms of canoe radio there. As I say, we did it twice in 2011. It started to get sort of quite big, so we did it again in 2012. A lot of media coverage on that. It was on BBC, ITV News, and all that sort of stuff. And we did it Jubilee week, and the weather, well, it wasn't very nice. Let's put it that way. One morning, I bailed out over 100 litres of rainwater out of a canoe, and it wasn't very good conditions. We carried on for probably about 4 or 5 days down below Oxford. and then decided to call it a day because it was just conditions were getting too dangerous. And when you're getting sort of 80-foot long narrow boats getting wedged across the river, you know, our 3mm of plastic is no match to that. So we came off the water and then went back, and I just noticed a mistake there, London Olympics. Yeah, so we restarted literally just before the Olympics, but in a different boat. We took a double kayak, which was something else that we wanted to try. We was never sure whether we could actually carry everything we wanted in a double kayak with radio and with all the camping kit for a number of days, and that's exactly what we did, and that worked pretty well. So one of the antennas is on the back of the kayak there. You can see the other one on the canoe. That was on the left. That was the original Slim Jim style antenna that we used on the open canoe, and then we experimented with mobile whips and all sorts of things, and we progressed pretty quickly with you know, with antennas and types of things. Waterproofing radios, always a bit of an issue, but we found a way. Normally plastic bags or map cases and blue tack worked very well to waterproof our radio equipment, so that all worked well. Once we'd done that trip,
And zip ties.
oh, and zip ties. Oh yeah, I love me zip ties. Once we'd done that one, once we finished the trip into London, we had to stop in London anyway because of the Olympics. Couldn't go any further that particular year. But Lauren wanted to continue up through London and out to sea. So we planned that for the following year, and that's what we did. I think it was something like 220 miles, literally south to sea. We walked the first 15 miles at the top end, got on the canoe, or the kayak rather, merrily paddled down towards London, resupplied with our seagoing kit, and then promptly canoed all the way through London and out to sea, and got to within 7 miles of our home before we decided to call it a day on that one. And that was because of the weather again on the last day. So we stopped just out on the Isle of Sheppey, just not too far away from here. Got a little bit of support from a radio amateur, G0PEK. He came out with us and supported us around all the mud flats on the last day, where we had very little room for manoeuvre in an emergency. So we did that. And we used 277s quite a lot on that. We still use the APRS, and but we had voice running all the time throughout the whole of the trip. We used 2 handhelds and just had one dedicated to APRS and one dedicated to voice, and that worked very, very well. We rigged up our own like hands-free system so that we could just hit the transmit button and carry on paddling, and that works quite well. And we've utilised that in various other ventures in some way, shapes and forms since. And we did it again at 9 years old. Lauren paddled down in her own boat. Wasn't content to go in the double kayak or the canoe anymore. So at 9 years old, newly licensed, she paddled her own boat 135 miles down the non-tidal Thames. We did rig up with radios on that one. Lauren had 2 meters on her boat. Failed to get a contact, so after 4 days, we sort of really gave up with the radio. I tried and failed to do HF from my kayak on that particular trip. We could hear stations and we could make contact once off the water, but when we put the boats on the water, the antenna was no better than the dummy load. But we've since succeeded with HF from an open canoe as we paddle down the river. So we have figured a way of doing that now. So there we are. Antennas have moved on a little bit. We've been using the flower pot antennas on the canoe there, made out of plastic tubing, and they're designed to detach from the boat in the case of a capsize or an emergency, or if they get caught on trees. They will lift off and stuff like that. So they don't become a hazard, you know, to our safety while we're paddling, and they will fold flat on the canoe and kayaks if we do go under low branches and stuff like that. So they're all the sort of things that you have to consider doing all those sort of things. Right, that's not just all the stuff that we've done with the boats. We've done lots of stuff locally. We've got an island out here that we go out and canoe out to sometimes and operate from on one of the little islands there. But that's more along the sort of the general sort of portable operating. So we left that off of this. The boots. Well, most of you, or a lot of you, will probably know us from our escapades up in the mountains that we did, and this all started really when Lauren was newly licensed. And we were out doing some stuff, and she decided that I'd like to do the Wainwrights one day, and so we set up a plan of doing them. So I'd already been using the radios and probably done about 70 summit activations after discovering about WOTA and SOTA. We knew nothing about it at the time, and then we were just using the radios more from a practical point of view. Lauren was only 9, so was it? I mean, he was 7, wasn't it? Where we first did all that, and Deb, Mum, that is, and Lauren were on a low-level walk with another family, and me and the other dad, we'd gone for a high-level walk around Buttermere, and we used 2 meters to keep in contact. We could actually see them down by the lake while we was yomping around the summits. And every time we got to a summit and we told them where we were, we kept getting caught by other amateurs wanting details. So I thought, well, that sounds interesting. Found out more about it, and then that started us off on our WOTA quest. Like I say, before Lauren got involved with it, I'd already done 70, but then we started all again. So I lost count how many summits I've actually done now. So there we go. So that's what happened. She wanted to do them. She wanted to do them all in a year. That's not really realistic when you live in Kent. So we settled on a 2-year program of activating, and actually finished them in
1 year and 364 days.
Yeah, well, 1 year and 364 days, or 363 days. We literally finished it just under the 2 years that she wanted to do, and that took an awful lot of planning and misplanning and adventures, misadventures, rescuing people, all sorts of things happened on that. Now, I don't know if you know much about WOTA. It's like SOTA, but you only need 1 contact to actually activate a summit. That's one of the main differences, and that was really useful for us with a youngster up on the mountains, because you don't always want to stay out there for long. We couldn't really sort of go up there and spend hours and hours doing a radio activation. So most of the summits that we did were relatively short. Having said that, I think almost all of them we did more than 1 contact. There was a couple where the weather was evil, and we literally just got a contact and we had to get off, otherwise we would have frozen. We was up in there in blizzards and sort of 50-60 mile an hour winds and stuff like that. Then we didn't hang around. Most times though, we'd actually abandon those before we even got anywhere near them and had to go and do them again. So there's quite a lot that we had to do. So WOTA worked for us. We did do 43 SOTAs in the process, but we've still yet to log those. But there we go. So that was all Lauren's idea. We were just sort of led by her, really. She wanted to do it, and all we did was provide the opportunities. And that's what we've done all the way through sort of Lauren's radio career, or anything else that she wanted to do outside of radio. You know, we give her the opportunities to do things. She wants to do it, and that's brilliant, and we'll support her through it. And that's what we did all through that. So that was the primary goals, was actually to activate all the summits. You see from that picture underneath there, we actually did, we actually camped out on some of the summits. And on that particular one, that was her 214th, that was a final summit. And we did a special event from there. Tiny little VHF antenna, little Moxon antenna there, HF antenna, and a vertical, all on one fiberglass pole. And we raised quite a bit of money for the mountain rescue teams, which was quite nice. We've yet to do any of the outlying fells. Once we finish this project, we've just not been able to get back up to the mountains. There's been other things that we've been doing and focusing on. So the outlying 116 are going to have to wait for a little longer before we do those. Sort of kit that we take up with us, mostly for the summit activations. We normally use FM, 2 meters FM. We use handhelds. We've taken up various ones in the past. The Kenwood D72s are our weapon of choice, and we've operated those down to -16 Celsius. So cold we actually. Well, it wasn't the battery; it was the PTT relay froze in the radio. So we got to a point where we couldn't actually transmit with it. So we had to warm it up on a radiator when we got back to base and did that. But we take a little VX3 handheld as a radio to monitor between summits. That worked quite well, and we had some contacts into Northern Ireland with the one handheld from some of the summits. So that was quite good. We vary some of the kit as well. We tend not to take the KX3 with us anymore after having to dismantle it several times to remove water from it. It's not particularly waterproof, as we found. So for our next round of portable stuff, we're taking a pair of FT817s. That's what we're going to be using. We failed lots of activations. So although we did 214, we probably climbed 250 summits or thereabouts. Several we had to redo. Either we had antenna faults. I think one of the earlier pictures showed on our H770 telescopic antenna that we did use for a number of activations, but we lost the center pin on that and was transmitting and nothing was getting out. So, but then we went on to building our own antennas, and once we did that, there was nothing stopping us. They were great little roll-up collinears and stuff like that, way next to nothing, and they work really, really well. So very, very, very happy with those. And they're now our antenna of choice for a lot of things, for canoeing, the mountain activations, and now for the cycling as well. Yeah, had a few adventures. We rescued quite a few people in wrong places, in bad weather and stuff like that, and got them sort of safely off mountains and things like that. And Mountain Rescue reckon we saved them at least 5 call outs when we actually met up with them and told them some of the things that we've done and how we've sorted people out on the hills there. So yeah, so it's done it's been quite useful. It didn't always go well. Like I say, one of them summits we had to come off the wrong side of the mountain on purpose because the wind, the storm that was due to come in 12 hours came in within 6 hours, and we got literally meters from the summits and had to turn around, didn't we? And we came down the wrong side of the mountain on purpose, ended up 27 miles from the car. And that's not the time to find that they don't run buses over to Buttermere in the winter. So that was an expensive taxi journey. But hey ho, that's what he did. Whiteout conditions, well, we're equipped for that. We're experienced enough to do that sort of stuff. Yeah, we forgot the radio on one of them. Forgot an antenna, forgot connectors and stuff like that. So there we are. The fractured wrist, that was dead on coming down from one of our hills, wasn't it?
I can't remember which one, but it was like just before a really, really long pathway back into the village.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hard Knot it was, not a particularly high one. It was called Hard Knot, the summit that we've been on, and beautiful summer's day, and Deb managed to find the one wet rock within about 100 miles of where we were walking, and slipped over and fractured a distal radius. So that was the end of the walking for that holiday. But that's how it goes. Where else? Yeah, so that was what we achieved. Over 2,000. We reckon. Well, we logged over 2,000, 2,000, 2,500 something. Contacts that we summit related contacts there on WOTA and other ones as well. So quite a lot. And Lauren, as far as I'm aware, is still the youngest radio amateur to complete all the Wainwrights and activate them. So she got a first for that one, which we're quite proud of her for that. I'm quite proud of her for sticking at it as well, because it was an easy thing to give up on. Possibly go into round 2 at some point. I've got a mind to do it at some point, but probably looking at it with lighter weight kits and probably doing a lot of it backpacking, because now we're sort of geared for doing that that sort of operating where we don't have to keep coming back to recharge everything. We're really getting there. We're working hard on that at the moment. So that's another option. So maybe round 2 will be, we'll do areas, and spend sort of 3 or 4 days out on the hills, come back, resupply with food, and then go back out again and do the same sort of thing. That was the thought. We would have probably done something like that this year, but at the moment we're about a year behind on things. And that leads us to bikes. Well, again, we've been out doing all cycling. We've been pottering around locally and testing out antennas and trips down to Ashford, which is about an 80-mile round trip on bike, isn't it? And we've been potting around with that. We operate hands-free from the bikes, which is sort of devised a little system that works well for us, and experimented with that. And then we wanted to see if it was possible to do it over a longer period of time. So in 2019, we decided to go on a little bike trip, and we loaded up the bikes with all the camping equipment and radios and stuff like that. The flags on the back of the bikes they're actually our antennas as well. They're holding those up, and we've actually progressed from the ones we got there onto something even better now, that we've had really, really good results with. And they only weigh 21 grams. So our new backpacking antenna is very, very good. And that's what we did. We started at Dover and went to see how far we could get. We took an 817. We took the D72s, which we use for APRS, and batteries and stuff like that, and then went for it. Part way down, I think it was on day 3, we met up with some amateurs, and we were given another radio, and they gave us a DMR radio, and I was thinking, do you know what am I going to do with this? We hadn't really sort of prepared to do that, and I'm just thinking, thank you ever so much, but that's another kilogram of weight we got to carry. But we did actually use it. We didn't use it on DMR. We actually used it on 77s analog, and we actually used it to link into Echolink enabled repeaters along the south coast, especially when it was down in like Devon and Cornwall, and that worked really, really well. Allowed us to sort of keep in contact with home, but we knew nothing of DMR, so we didn't play with it on that at the time.
I thought it was around Bristol.
What?
When we got the radio, I thought it was
No, it's Brighton.
Oh, Brighton.
Yeah, we didn't go to Bristol. Lauren's geography is. I'm going to have to do some work on her geography. Anyway, you can get an idea from the wind that we had to contend with. We had relentless headwinds, and you can see the antenna there. It's actually looking at a funny angle. It's actually held together with a tent peg, because one of the storms actually snapped the antenna on the join there. So we had to patch that up. But that antenna is at that angle purely because of the wind blowing, and we had a headwind practically all the time. It was that was pretty relentless and pretty painful, I'm afraid. But there we go. Biggest problem that we had there though, the charge controller for our battery failed and wouldn't do anything. So it kept reporting our battery was fully charged when it wasn't. So, and we forgot to pack a mains charger for it. So we were pretty scuppered with our main battery and was relying on our little LiPo backup batteries. And we had a small power supply with us, and whenever we could get to a campsite and where we had the ability to sort of plug something in, we would literally plug all the batteries in and the radios in at the same time and charge them all up overnight. So that was a lifesaver on that one. We just carried on going. We kept trying. So we got through the storms. We got turned away from campsites and where they no longer catered for tents and stuff like that. And then we just carried on going. Camped in people's gardens, with their permission, of course. And then that was it. The only thing we booked was the ferries, because we went over to the Isle of Wight. We decided to cross over rather than go through Southampton. We decided to bypass that by going over to the Isle of Wight, so that was quite pleasant. But it created some delays because we had ferry delays and stuff like that, and they all went a bit pear-shaped. And then another ferry we only found out 2 days before that the Sandbanks ferry down at Bournemouth wasn't running, and that added on a significant amount of miles to our route that we had to replan while we was out. So that was a headache that we didn't really need. There we go. Oh, you can see the solar panels on there as well. That was what we were using to try and charge things up. 40-watt solar panel on the side there, backup antenna with a little field radio flag and the broken antenna on the bike there. Lauren also had an antenna on hers, so we would alternate between the D72s to do APRS, and then we do a bit of voice as well. That was one of the problems that we had. So mechanicals was a bit of an issue. We only had one puncture throughout the whole of the journey, which was quite good. But that was potentially quite a serious one where she shredded her tyre, and that could have spelled the end of the venture. But we carried a spare, so it just took me 2 hours chipping out the remains of the tyre from the rim. What had actually happened, where we've been going down lots and lots of steep hills and using the brakes on the hills, we were burning through the brake blocks like no tomorrow, and basically Lauren cooked her tyre onto the wheel, onto the rim. So it took me 2 hours picking it out with a penknife before I could fit the folding spare tyre that we actually carry. We always, on longer trips, that's one of the extra pieces of kit that we carry, and I'm really pleased that we did. We would have been able to carry on, but I would have had to have gone off and found a bike shop somewhere, and that would have cost us a day or two on the whole venture. So, but fortunately, we didn't have to do that. We did use repeaters along the route, along the whole of the south coast, with varying levels of activity. So the Echolink ones worked better for us because we just put it up on the Kent Active Radio Amateurs Facebook group, and then people started to sort of come down and join us and annoy us on there. And some of those repeaters, we was in range of them on, from the bike for a good 2 or 3 days. So that worked quite well. And with the bigger antenna at the tent, we could hit them from much further afield. So there we are. And the APS worked really, really well through most of it, and was met up by some amateurs down in Cornwall. And we had a little bit of a following, didn't we? So that was quite nice. So we met up with a few people and one of the radio clubs while we were down there. They came out and picked us up one evening and took us up to Red Roof, and we met up with the Cornwall Radio Club and their star young amateur, who's a few years younger than Lauren there, but who's also been hitting the news sort of quite big with a lot of the things that she's been doing. So it's nice that there are, a few youngsters doing that sort of thing. Yeah, we travelled until we really couldn't go any further, because if we did, we would just get very, very wet. So we ended up.
Got wet already.
Well, we'd already got wet. Actually, the day we got to Land's End was appalling. Yeah, absolutely atrocious weather. It's what we normally call a wet knicker day. We were absolutely drenched when we got there, but we dumped all the bags and that in Marrows Iron near Penzance, and travelled light to Land's End. And that was a day that Lauren killed her brakes.
Yeah, and then we had to go down a really, really steep hill at the end, and
she had to walk down the hill because she literally had no front brakes. She'd worn the brake pads down to the metal. Again, we had spares, but we'd left them we'd left them with the trailer and all the camping stuff back at the campsite. And but that was the day that we could have really that we really needed them. But they were sorted the next day, weren't they? Our campcraft got better and better with our bicycle sort of camping setup. That was our little 2-man mountain tent that we used up in the Lake District as well, and we just modified it with a tarp. If there wasn't trees to hold the tarp up, we used the bikes, and we could put the trailer underneath there. It gave us somewhere to cook in the inclement weather, and to store bits that we didn't really want in the tent. So that was quite good. We're moving on from that tent now because Lauren's a bit older. She wants a tent of her own. So we found a teepee style tent. We bought 2 of them. They weigh between the two tents together weigh about 200 grams, 250 grams more than just that tent alone. And we've got ways of saving that elsewhere. And it also means that I don't have to carry all the tent now. Lauren's carrying her half and I carry my half. I think it might have something to do with my snoring. I'm not sure, but there we go. But that was the thing. We proved that it was possible to do radio over a prolonged period, sort of unsupported, as we as we go. We wanted to do a bigger trip in 2020. Couldn't do that. There's something going on in the world that stopped us from doing that. So just as a little side thing, back on the first lockdown we had about a year ago, I put the bike on a turbo trainer in the garage and started pedaling, and started off with a handheld attached to the handlebars as we normally do, and that progressed to the head unit of my FT857, and that's what we did. Mainly used it on 2 meters, and every time I went on, carried on having a chat locally all over Kent, and yeah, did 8,000 kilometers like that, just for a bit of fun. And then we logged these maps sort of basically every day that we put up, and sort of showed the progression, the virtual location around the coast that I'd done from the mileage on the bike. So I did the first half in the first lockdown, had a lot of vibration problems with the turbo trainer, and ended up with almost like my hands went numb basically, on both hands. My smaller fingers went completely numb for quite a few months. So I stopped anyway and let the hands recover from that. Bought a new turbo trainer. We'd also gone out and bought a couple of new bikes, and carried on in December. And I did the final 4,000 miles from December and on into January over the winter there, and that was quite fun. So that got a bit addictive, to be honest. But I just didn't want to stop in the end. And what next? Well, Megacycle, it was Megacycle 2020. It is now Megacycle 2021. It's on, as far as we're aware at the moment. I'm a bit reluctant to make any sort of big announcements about it yet, but we are going to do that through Radcom and social media and stuff like that. But we're just waiting for lockdown restrictions, to ease sufficiently to commit to doing it. At the moment, we're not confident that's happening. So, but that's the plan, and we are busy sort of planning away. We've got the route sorted out. We do need help from radio clubs up along the route for that. But it's basically 1,000 miles. We were going to do Land's End, John O'Groats, and then go across to Cape Wrath. But to link it into International Lighthouses weekend in August, it was a bit tight on time. So we decided that we can save 4 days by going to Cape Wrath first, and then we can finish off after that going up to John O'Groats. So it's still the same sort of distance, but it gives us an opportunity to do that. Cape Wrath Lighthouse hasn't actually been activated for International Lighthouses weekend, so it will be a first. But it's not as simple as that, because they don't have any power there. It's all they do everything on solid fuel. They do have their own stuff, but there's no power that we have access to. So that's going to be a problem. That's how we mount, or one of the ways that we mount the radios on the handlebar. We made up our own brackets out of pipe clips and stuff, and credit cards and stuff like that to put in the back of the case for the radio, and on it goes. I did use a little switch like this for the PTT switch, like a little motorcycle switch, but we've since made new ones that go in the end of these handlebar extenders. We put a little switch in the end and link through that, and that works perfectly. So we can cycle along, use a little head unit, and talk quite happily without having to hold a PTT switch or anything like that. So we can go truly hands-free on the bikes, and we've thoroughly tested that throughout cycling around down here and down in the New Forest and places like that. So there we are. The main issues that we've got at the moment is where to camp. That's where we're going to sort of ask for help from radio clubs and individuals looking for gardens to camp in, and or if they know of local places, get some local knowledge on places to camp along the route. We know where we want to camp. We've got all that sorted out, but it's now just sort of sorting out the finer details from that. But like I say, that sort of stuff we're not ready to do yet. Planned start will be to leave on August the 21st, and it's a 28-day venture. We won't get home for until the 28th. That's the plan. So we'll finish cycling a couple of days earlier, but that's the idea. We'll all be raising money for the RNLI as well. That's the one of the main things that we're going to do along the route there, and we're a long way from funding on that. I think with all the COVID stuff, it really threw one massive spanner in all the works of all these things. Like I say, we didn't get any. We did apply for funding, wasn't successful with that. We might try again, but I'm not sure if I want to go that route at the minute. But we shall see how that all goes. The beauty of doing it independently is that we can change things as we plan. Originally, we'd budgeted for, or we wanted for the funding, we wanted to get a backup team to support us, but we couldn't do that. So we decided to do it unsupported, and that, although it's harder for us, it does provide us with an awful lot more flexibility on how we do things. The downside is it means we won't have as much time to do the radio side of things, but we will still manage to hit the local repeaters and do other bits and pieces on the way, and hopefully interact with some of the radio clubs along the route. That's the plan. And there we are. So we have a GoFundMe thing. It's still got the 2020 date on there, but it's still live. So we kept that running for the time being, and we'll continue to keep that running. I do need to update it with plans for this year, and then we'll go from there. And we'll post on Facebook via the Cara group, just because it's easier for us to do that, and we'll share it into as many groups as we can. I think I manage 16 groups. I can share into 16 groups before Facebook throws up a warning to say that we're spamming. So there we go. That was one of the problems that we did hit before. And we're also going to be hopefully taking a lot more video this time, so that we can do a little mini documentary after the event as well. We've got someone that's willing to edit and put all that together for us. All we've got to do is take the raw data, and then someone will put that together for us, which will be really, really nice. So, and there we go. So hopefully that's the sort of thing that you were after from us. Right, where are we?
Absolutely.
Right,
Oh, Kevin, fantastic. Those of a certain vintage would remember. You remind me of the adventure Ranulph Fiennes, and maybe the more modern one would be Bear Grylls, maybe on your radios and everything else. But Philip there has a question. We're going to get a few questions here. Philip was straight in there with a wee question. If someone wants to, or Philip, if you want to go ahead and ask your question there.
Yeah, well, it's more than a question. Firstly, I'd like to thank Lauren and Kevin for giving this presentation. I've known Lauren and Kevin quite a while, and so was supporting their mega cycle last year until the dreaded virus come along and sculpted everything. But now that I know Kevin is back online for this year, I'm glad to see the link's still the same. I will do my commitment that I made last year and make a donation every month.
Oh, that's really nice of you. Thank you very much.
Thing. And as I did say last year, if there's anything I can help with along the route, well, you know, Northern Ireland's not easy, but I might have contacts or get you a garden you can camp in or something like that. And if travel restrictions allow, as I said last year, I could be taking a week or two's holiday over in the northwest of England. You just never know. But we'll keep in touch anyway.
Yeah, well, you're more than welcome. I mean, if you want to do that, then that's absolutely brilliant. And so nothing is planned as far as where we know the locations, but where we actually stay, we've decided not to do that because the latest research I've done shows that a lot of the campsites that are marked on the map where we plan to go don't exist anymore, or only cater for caravans. So
yeah, well, I'm thinking of gardens and places like that.
Yeah,
yeah. I do may have some contacts that you wouldn't have, but I'll still make that financial commitment because I know what something like that will cost, and not only that, as you say, that the any excess is going to the RMLA, which the local radio club here support anyway. But good to get the catch up. Good to see what these have been up to, and hopefully things will progress this year. But no doubt, knowing Lauren, she will push you to do something else if you can't get doing the mega cycle.
well, we've got other plans. If we can't do this for any reason this year, then there's other things that we can do that are a little bit more localized. And I've always been interested in the cachota style of operating. We did a little bit of that before that all went a bit strange a number of years ago. But there's something, we've got some energy to sort of throw in that direction at some point when it fully gets off the ground.
Funny you mentioned cachota because it was myself that paid for the.
Yes, I know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Right. So I do have contact.
That.
Right, I paid for the URL for them a couple of years ago before. God, can't remember the man's name now that died, the taxi driver, but there is a couple of guys working in the background trying to get that all up and running again, But here, I'll not hold it. You have my details, Kev. And the GoFundMe link's going to be the same link. Doesn't matter. It still says 2020, but it's for it's ongoing. That's good.
We'll update it on the actual page though. To say that it's still going ahead.
The
Like I say, we're just hanging fire for a few weeks until we see what happens with the next sort of couple of steps with the easing of restrictions and stuff like that. And once if we get a feel that it's doable this year, then we'll go for it. But if things go wrong, then we'll be back in the situation that we did last time. And if that happens, then the money that we've actually raised already, because we've still got cash that we've been given, and I've got it sitting here, and we've not used it, and that will go straight to the RNLI anyway. So that's how we plan to do it.
Sharing on Facebook won't be a problem either. If you can only share so many groups, there's others can share for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Share away, absolutely.
If Philip, if you're about in the south of England during that mega cycle, you could even get on the bike and join them for 10 or 20 minutes.
Not a chance. I'll drive and I'll carry equipment, but
we'll give you a push.
I won't what I call. Just lastly, Jimmy was on the call there. Jimmy had to drop off, but if you need any advice or anybody that needs to edit video, we know a man that's very good at it, don't we, Dave?
Yeah, we'll sort that out for you. No problem at all.
Okay, thanks.
There is a question here is coming. What sort of distance do you reckon you think you're going to be covering each day?
We're aiming for 100 kilometers a day, isn't
it? When I did this, I did this ride 40 years ago, and I did 100 miles a day, but I had a backup team doing that when I was 16 years old. Lauren's going to be 16 this year, so that makes it quite a good doing it this year. But because we're fully loaded with equipment, we're actually aiming for 100 kilometers a day, which is about 62, 63 miles. We're not intending on doing any more. We possibly could, but we want to enjoy it as well. We want to survive it. And we also want a little bit of time, to do some of the radio stuff. And also we've got the campcraft part of things to do as well. So, we're banking on, 100K a day, which we're pretty sure that we can do that. Well, we know that we can do that sort of distance, but it's doing it every day, for 18 days for the main part of the route, which is what we're going to Gotta
You
be doing
make that sound as if it's just a trip to the shops, only about 60 mile a day,
We have
fantastic.
factored in a couple of rest days up in Fort William
Oh, that's good.
as we get up into Scotland. So we've factored in two rest days, but we've done that because someone here wants to. What do you want to do? Climb.
Ben Nevis.
She wants to climb Ben Nevis. So on our rest day, we're going to climb the highest mountain in the UK. And we'll probably take a radio up with us as well. And we might as well do a solar activation while we're at it. So that's the plan for that one. So we've got 2 days in Fort William. So we've got time to do that if the weather allows us to, of course.
Amazing. Absolutely fantastic. Okay, does anyone have any questions there they want to ask? Feel free. Go ahead, Graham.
Yeah, well, I'm just going to say I prefer slightly bigger boats and 2 wheels with engines in the middle. But yeah, I think what you guys are doing is really cool. Definitely pretty interesting to hear what you're doing. I'm quite interested in all the little, how do you figure out how do you attach things and do switches and figure out your antennas? Do you have a lot of that documented somewhere for people to have a read at, or
I haven't at the moment, but I will do. I'll sort that out, and because what I'll do is I'll build up another presentation like this that deals with Megacycle itself and sort of overcomes a lot of the issues that we had. I mean, the biggest problems that we're having at the moment is batteries. We've been experimenting with 18650 battery packs, and I think we just bought some cheap cells, and you know what it's like, you buy cheap, you buy twice. So we've had a little bit of a problem with those. We've had problems with our solar panels underperforming. We bought some new ones last year ready for operating, and they're not performing anywhere near that we wanted to. We're actually resorting, would you believe it? Don't laugh. We're actually carrying a hand crank generator. It's only a tiny one. Produces a couple of amps, but that is going to be our backup, and we're going to slave that onto a small battery and use it as we do when we do mini contests and stuff like that. And we've done that with solar panels. Small solar panel, 30-watt panel, 40-watt panel, small battery, and we've gone 6-7 hours operating there, and the battery's still fully charged. So using that sort of theory, we thought, well, we could do the same with the hand crank generator, because we can't guarantee that we're going to have sun all the time. But the new panels that we got, we can use them either in series or parallel, depending on the light conditions. So we can get our target voltage out just at reduced amps in order to do something. So even on a dull day, we can charge something while we're cycling. We've looked at things like bicycle dynamos and stuff like that, but it's just not worth it. The gain that you get from them is outweighed by the effort that you're putting into it for the length of time that you're riding, and it's going to be hard enough. But yeah, I'll do that. A lot of the antennas we just experimented with. We've got roll-up Yagis that we use up on the mountains. We're going to take one of those for something specific at the lighthouse. So we've got to take one of our folding Yagi antennas up there and our little verticals and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I'll put something together that shows all the stuff. They're not all our ideas. All we tend to do is we find someone else's idea, think, oh, that looks good, but we can do this with it, and then we modify it to suit our particular needs. And we've done that on numerous occasions, haven't we? With it, and that's a bit of fun. It's a side of the hobby that we like, just tinkering and seeing what you can get away with.
I've got my tinkering board right beside me. This is my latest one. Yeah, no, batteries and stuff is a favorite of mine, and I working at home a lot last year tried to set up solar and run FT891 24/7 off solar panels, and I ended up buying a lot more solar panels and a lot more battery, and I still couldn't do it. So yeah, I know that pain of trying to keep stuff running. And that's just at home, but
well,
yeah,
we managed QSOs on our KX3 on 2 meters, and on one particular occasion I only used my smaller panel, my 21-watt panel, and I plugged that straight into the radio without any battery in the circuit at all when it powered up, And I did actually make contacts with it. I did actually was able to continue working for a bit, but all it took was a sparrow to like fart in front of the sun, and that was all it needed. And then the circuit collapsed. So as soon as a little bit of cloud or anything like that went in front of the sun, that was it. The whole thing just collapsed and the radio turned off. But our batteries sort of look a bit like that. It looks like you can just add a fuse to them, but these are just 18650 cells. We're using 4 in series, and then we use a little regulator to bring it back down to the operating voltage that we want. That's the system that we've been using, and so far it's been noise free, and that's what we're pinning our hopes on, that we can unbolt these and make these into smaller batteries. And probably what we're going to do, we're going to use them in 8 cells in any one battery, because we don't actually need the higher current now. Now that we decided what radios we're taking, we can do it with smaller batteries. The beauty of that is that we can configure the solar panels to charge a couple of these up in one go while we're actually cycling, and while we're using the other radios as we go, and then use those when we need them. That's the plan. But like I say, we're short on current at the moment, but we're coming up with ideas as to how to overcome that. But we shall see.
That's definitely going to be a new expression of mine for loss of solar power. You know, a sparrow has farted in front of the sun. But Terry has raised his hand there for a question. Go ahead, Terry.
Yes, thanks, Dave. And Kevin, Lauren, absolutely hats off to you both. We've spoken on occasion while you've been doing the virtual bike ride around Britain, and listened to the whine of the treadmill or whatever it's called. Since you're such absolute ambassadors for the hobby, I fail to understand.
Terry, you muted yourself by accident.
You're muted, Terry.
You accidentally muted yourself.
Yeah, bless you, Lauren. Thank you. Okay, whereabouts did I get to?
The fail to understand bit.
Yeah, okay, so you didn't lose much more than a syllable or two. I just fail to understand why de-expedition funding of one flavour or another wasn't forthcoming. I'm sure you try everything else. It disappoints me that a fund couldn't help you. You talk about £2,000 for the next venture. I do wonder if 10 quid couldn't help.
I think what really happened when we did that, the RSGB were going through a lot of issues, and they had a lot of other things on their plate, because it was at the time when we had all this stuff with the French wanting bits of 2 meters and stuff like that, and there was all that sort of uproar going on, and lots of resources were being thrown at that, and basically the answer that we got was there's not much money in the pot, sort of thing, which I'm not sure about. We did look at the legacy funding, but they couldn't see a way that the legacy fund would be able to work.
Yeah,
I have thought about reapplying for expedition funding this year, because there's got to be money in the pot now, and plus I don't think there's that many expeditions going on. In fact, this could well be the first of the year. I really don't know. I don't know of any other any sort of expedition that's been done like this. So I don't know if it actually fits into a nice little box that fits into their funding criteria. That's the problem.
Yeah, I understand that from the RSGB's point of view.
Yeah.
But on the big D expeditions, the ones that cost tens or hundreds of thousands of pounds, you see all the sponsors listed, don't you, on their publicity. I wonder that some of those couldn't be persuaded to support some real grassroots level stuff, which must. I think that the way you two do it, and there will be others, no doubt, must be at least as persuasive to the newer people, or the people who are yet to become new.
Well, this is it.
Excited, and I think that, you know, a visit to St Brandon is no more exciting than a round Britain quiz trip. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Anyway,
I've got a few letters to write to various people because we have got some questions. We don't really need that much in the way of equipment, but
no,
you know, we wouldn't say no to certain things, and we need to get some advice on on other bits, mainly to do with sort of cabling and stuff like that. But we've literally just bought another FT817. We got offered one at a reasonable price recently, so because you know, we don't want to just take one. Originally, we were going to take the KX3 and the 817, but as I said, we found that we love the KX3. It's a great radio. I do like operating it. It's just not robust. Not for, you know, not that I want to take £1,000 radio on a 1,000-mile trip. You know, I want to be able to use it again afterwards. So the 817s are a little bit more robust. So that's why we're looking at taking two of those. Because we can't just take one, because if that goes wrong, then we're totally scuppered. So we have to have a backup.
Yeah. Anyway, good luck with it, and do read about all the sponsors of big trips. They may.
Yes, I will do, Terry. Yeah.
Thank you.
I completely agree and concur with everything that Terry said. Definitely, there should be funding out there for you. It's the de-expedition of Great Britain, you know, the only one that's really going to happen probably for a while, you know. Absolutely. Ted, I think have you got the hand up there? Oh, you're on mute there, or maybe you were just
I didn't want to say anything that didn't go down well. Anyway, many thanks for putting it on. I'm in King's Lynn, by the way. I know I've worked Terry, and I've worked his son and his wife, I believe, at various events. But I don't think I've worked anyone else on here. But excellent evening, and thanks for that. And I'm sure there's people like perhaps a CDXC even. Or
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you again, and we'll look forward to the next one of these.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, does anyone have any other final questions there? I'm not seeing any hands raising up or waving at me frantically. So, Kevin, Lauren, can I just thank you very much for taking the time to come and speak to us, for the time you put in to the presentation. Definitely, you've made me even more of a fan there of the work you guys are doing. I think it's great. It's so encouraging. It's great for the hobby to get it in the air and on the air in all our media streams and everything else. I don't think Lauren fully realizes the influence she's having on the younger generation and her age, who are asking about it. Even my own son there, who's 11. When I was telling him about yourself, Lauren, and going around and cycling and using the radios and by boat and everything else, his face really did light up. So thank you again, both of you. You're an example to us all to get out and have a bit of fun, first of all, on the radio. But with those twists there too, it's absolutely great. So from all of us here at the Tuesday Night Lecture series and everyone else, and it's great there actually, Philip, for everyone that's still here, has just put in the GoFundMe account link there in the messages. I implore you all, please, even if it's a $5, go and donate to their mega cycle, whatever you can there, and we'll get listening to you on the air by one way or another, or catch the updates as the cycle happens. So again, guys, thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Yeah, well, thanks for having us, and yeah, we'll keep you posted with what goes on with everything. And
please
yeah,
do.
one little final thing, because we never realised quite the impact that we had until it was when we finished the mountain stuff, and we went to YOTA 2017 about a week later, didn't we? After doing another special event in between time, we literally came off the mountains, got home, spent a few days at home, did a special event at a castle down in the Rochester Castle in Kent, and then we was off to YOTA. And when we got there, the first thing that someone said to Lauren when they saw her there was it, "Are you SOTA girl?" And that was one of the some of the European youngsters, and they knew all about her over there, and we didn't even think anything about it. But anyway, thanks for having us tonight, and we will keep you posted with with how things progress.
Please do.
Hopefully, it'll be a good one this year. We're hoping it will be anyway.
Absolutely. And as you know, we'll be sharing your links as they're coming out and everything, and your posts. So, we're all supporting you and backing you. And you never know, maybe Philip will get along there for a mile on the bike at one point. But
yeah, we'll give you a push, Philip.
Thanks very much.
Never get me on a bike. Not even one more.